Hello, and welcome back to the DayLuna Human Design Podcast. We are really excited for this conversation today where we are interviewing a special guest, Jocelyn Kelly Reid, and we talk about all things quantum leaping around our money manifestation, being a spiritually led entrepreneur, and creating as we shift paradigms, really dismantling all of the disempowerment of the old paradigm so that we can be empowered to receive the wealth that we deserve and create the things that our soul really wants to create in this time of great change. So, this was a really inspiring and expanding conversation for us, and we're excited to share it with you. I think it's going to be really expanding for you as well. A little bit about Jocelyn Kelly Reid. She is a leading feminine business strategist, a wealth activator, and the queen of the relaxed millions movement, who specializes in sustainable wealth creation and effortless monetization. Jocelyn is on a mission to lead spiritual women to make bank for themselves, to build wealth without the cost, to work less, play more, and fall in love with life as a receiving woman. All right. So without further ado, let's welcome on our guest for today, Jocelyn Kelly Reid. We're really excited to be connecting with you. We had some tech issues today as we're meeting, but now we're here. And I feel like it's because as the three of us are just so powerful, our energies were just messing it up, but here we are. And we're really excited that you're here. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. I'm so excited to be here. I know I was like, we must have some powerful codes for the internet because why else would we have the energetic interference?
Yeah, I swear that that happens sometimes. When
It
we're with someone
does.
that's really powerful, it's like all of our internal energy Wi-Fi's are connecting, and but I'm really excited. I feel like it's really meant to be, and even just reading some of the words that you include in your bio and the things that you talk about, I just feel so initiated by even just reading that, like specifically the receiving woman, like even just reading those words, something inside of me was like, yes, we are meant to have this conversation. I'm so excited to learn from you. So I'd love to just start out with asking you to just introduce yourself to our audience and share with us a bit about all that it is that you do and teach and share.
Yeah, of course. So obviously, I'm Jocelyn Kelly Reid. I'm a feminine business strategist and wealth activator. I've had a big journey, personal journey with money, with my intuition, and with really learning how to like be okay and be confident in just doing things differently and existing differently in the world than quote unquote most people, both like in the world and on the internet. And I think that my biggest journey has honestly been in my own power, and we see power come up right when we're desiring to create anything. And there's also a lot of like perceptions we have around power that don't serve us, that kind of keep us from anchoring our own, which we can dive into. But essentially, I help women who are energetic, or what I call energetic, but essentially spiritually open, right? Scale businesses and make money in ways that feel really good to us, that feel in alignment to us, that are sustainable. A lot of what we've been modeled by like more traditional feminism and just being on the rise in the world comes with like it always comes, what I say is like without a cost, right? Like there ends up being some type of like literally meltdown to your human body, meltdown within your relationships, crazy highs, crazy lows. Like there's something that you always have to abandon to get where you want to go. And I'm like, that's not, yes, it's been modeled frequently, but there's no way that that's required, right? Because that doesn't even make sense. Like the universe is infinite, everything is infinite. We get to have it the way we want it, but there's so much, right, that we need to break down around how we've been taught by even like in well-meaning spaces, areas, et cetera, et cetera. So my vibe is really that like we get to have it all, and you get to have your business and experience your life like in the vibration of what I call the feminine exhale. Not saying it's going to be a cakewalk the whole time, but I do believe that we have the power to radically shift the experience that we have in life with business, money, everywhere.
I love it so much. And as I was saying before, I feel initiated hearing you speak these words because I just believe so deeply that if more wealth and power is in the hands of spiritual women, we are going to be on track for where we're meant to be. And I feel like anyone hearing that can agree that that feels true in your body. But also, our societal conditioning has derailed that mission, right? Like spiritual people shouldn't want money and women can't be powerful and like, all of these societal conditionings that kind of steer us away from that. So I am so grateful for the work that you do because I really believe that that's going to help the future of our evolution as a collective. And also, I think that, spiritual women that want to earn more and they want it to be joyful. They want it to be this rising. They want it to be that exhale and to tap into the receiving. I think that that's really important because I know so many other female entrepreneurs that are really spiritual and they work their freaking asses off and they are so dedicated to being of service. And I feel like that joy piece, the ease, that true abundance is sort of lacking because they've come across all of these, breaking these societal constructs around women and spirituality and power. So I'm just really excited to ask you a bit about your origin story. Like, how did you said that this was a big journey for you personally, your own power, your own creativity, your own finances, but I'm curious to hear a bit about that journey. How did you come into where you are now?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a wild one. So I came from what you would call, a traditional, I worked in finance. I was like responsible with my money. I had a boyfriend. I lived in San Francisco. I'd gone to Ivy League school. Like I had I'm not someone who I would say was set up to necessarily put myself in the experiences that I put myself in to experience money and life necessarily being so hard. However, I do believe in generational trauma. My dad was the rags to riches story in our family. And I do feel like a lot of what came up for me, it's like it makes sense, right? If you look at the lineage, but it doesn't make sense if you look at my immediate family. I'm the only one who's financially destroyed myself. I'm the only one who's created like chaos around money. That was not modeled to me at all. So isn't that interesting? I mean, I even worked in finance
Mm.
and I still did. So
Wow.
I was very much on what I call your quote unquote basic path, right? Where it's like you do the right things, you go to a good school, you get a good job, you save up your money, you buy a house, like just doing the normal things. And all of a sudden, I wasn't spiritual. I was literally just like existing in this 3D world, having fun, living life, not focused on developing myself, not even really thinking about what do I want 5 years from now, 10 years from now, literally just living.
Mm.
And then when my Saturn return hit, all of a sudden, like my desires completely shifted. I did not want the relationship. I did not want the job. I did not want to live in San Francisco. I didn't want anything. All of a sudden, I just wanted to move to Los Angeles. And I thought I just wanted to live somewhere warmer because I do enjoy warm weather. And I was like dating a guy who lived there. So I was going back and forth. And I thought that like that's all it was, And it's so interesting because, and then I met like someone else once I got there, and he was a big part of my story. But once I got there, my whole life unraveled in a way that I say, like, it had the touch that, like, when people have breakdowns in Hollywood, it's like such a special kind of vibe.
Yes.
I had the kind of personal breakdown that you can only have in LA. Um, because I feel like LA has a lot of energy just because of the history of Hollywood and the number of people who, yes, there's a lot of success stories, but there's also a lot of chaos and drama and lives lost very early in weird circumstances. Like Hollywood has some dark energy, right? There's a lot going on there. And I lived in West Hollywood and I was like very tapped into it. And I started having a really powerful spiritual awakening being someone who wasn't spiritual. I was hearing voices. I was involved with this guy. I got addicted to psychics and burned through hundreds of thousands of dollars, like all my money. It was like I became a different person, like literally became a different person. I was having premonition dreams about everything that he was going to do. And we were on and off for like 5 years, other relationships, him coming back. I even dreamt about the woman that he's married to now. I didn't know who she was. And I dreamt that it was like I saw her with a gold ring on her finger and I saw him with a gold ring on his finger, like towards the end of our whole dynamic. And I was like, okay, that's the direction he's going. Like that dream is what actually allowed me to like let go. But I was really being called. I mean, I was even in situations where I was like, finally getting myself together around what I want to do professionally, even though I was kind of holding on by a thread. And I thought I wanted this one job And I literally remember waking up and there was a voice, like I was hearing audible voices, which I don't anymore. So that's interesting. And it was like, oh, it's not this job, it's the next one. And I was like, okay. And then it was like, I would have dreams that were literally just white light. Like it was really intense. And then I was also very codependent. You know how, like, when you're very spiritually awake and very psychic and also emotionally not well, it doesn't go well. It does
Yeah, it's a bad
not go
recipe.
well. It's a bad, bad recipe.
Yeah.
And that was me, right? I was just totally porous and I didn't understand myself. I didn't value myself enough and all of these different things. And I wound up having a health crisis and I had 37 fibroids. I had to have open surgery, but it was a good thing because I couldn't work because I was basically had a period that never went away and they're trying to get me to stop bleeding and have surgery. And all could do was sit with myself. And I found Louise Hay. And for some reason, I was just drawn to her. And then I looked up the spiritual reason for fibroids and it was romantic shame. And I was like, this makes sense. I had literally destroyed my life over a relationship that was never fully a relationship. And also keep in mind, I'd never done anything like that before and I haven't since. It was like that one, just like karmic,
Wow.
deeply karmic. And I mean, I've been codependent previously, like before the way that I am now, but nothing was ever like that. And it made sense. And then I realized through her story and her work, like, oh, okay, if I created this, like I can outcreate this. Like this, I'm responsible. Like there was something I hadn't tuned into before around like, oh, I write the story. I'm the main character. Like I didn't get that. I just was like hanging on by a thread, praying to God that something would get better. And that wasn't like, of course, like then I was miraculously well, but it woke me up. And then ultimately I moved to New York and I just had another crazy download. I was found a job and I was sitting on my sofa and like it just hit me. I was like, this is the last job I'm ever gonna have. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. It just was like, I still remember that moment. And then ultimately, like, I just started like, once you realize you want something different, I feel like the universe starts open. Like, it's not always obvious. It doesn't come to you on a platter, but the universe will start opening doors. And I had found like Lacey Phillips. Do you guys know who she is in To Be
Yeah.
Magnetic? Right? And I
Yeah.
was like, just learning more about the role of the subconscious. I was very much doing a lot of kind of like trauma healing. Obviously, I needed it, right? All of that kind of stuff and understanding myself better. Um, and I was on a family vacation, and my aunt had like retired, and she was doing like corporate, like like executive consulting for high level CEOs. And she was talking about it. And I've been in sales and marketing in various capacities for like 15 years and all these different types of industries. And I was like, I know these things. And it just like opened my mind. And then I manifested a friend that I had worked with in the interior design industry, which was like the industry I was in after finance and before this. Um, she was working for a firm and I'd been a buyer and they were like wanting to open this like location and needed help. And she was like, oh, do you want to fly out and like teach us about this? And I was like, sure. And then I got paid like my New York rent in that half day that I spent with them. And I was like very check to check. Oh, also during that time when I destroyed my finances, I created $100,000 in tax debt. So like up to the sky in debt and then like living paycheck to paycheck. And then I just got paid my rent, which was not like New York's pretty expensive. I don't know at the time, it was like $2,700 or something to share my mind. I was like, wow, maybe money isn't so hard. Maybe like you're enough to, like what's inside of you is something that you can monetize. And then I just decided ultimately I didn't really want to support, it wasn't corporations. It's like I was more interested in individual humans who also wanted to have a business. You know what I mean? And so I just started like and I was more tapped into like, yes, I'm highly strategic and that's definitely a big part of my work, but I'm also very energetic and I'm clearly awake, right? And spiritual and all these things. And I wanted to also teach from that lens. And so, yeah, I started doing that. And then it went from like 100K in debt to 100K months in like 3 years, which was pretty crazy.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow, what a powerful story. I mean, it's amazing to hear now that it's all happened, how that change in your Saturn return was so needed to kind of bring you into a whole new world. But I can see that in the moment, it was probably like, what is going on? Like, it's just such a stark polarity. But it's so beautiful to see that you've been able to like kind of quantum leap in your life in short amounts of time, I would say, because I feel like most people have this idea that it takes 10 years or 20 years of linear slow progress building towards something to get somewhere. And really spirit kind of shows us that it isn't always like that. And sometimes we have these soul contract moments that are here to really undo things and show us something and give us that inspiration to move forward. It's really powerful to hear that.
I agree with you. And I'm always saying, like, it doesn't have to take a long time. Like,
Yeah.
that's the point of being tuned into the energetics of working with the quantum field, of not playing with money and like it's so hard and like blah, blah, blah. And I'm not saying that every piece of my journey has been a cakewalk. And there's definitely been like, okay, leap, learn how to sustain. Okay, leap again. Like, for example, right now, I'm more tuned into, okay, let's like make this money a little bit differently than how we made it before. Like it's not just leap, 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 leap. You know what I mean? It's like I'm like, let's let ease on top of ease be the standard. Like let's not just like make money at all costs. And I wasn't before. I've always like been about this vibe, but I'm like just the way that I'm interacting with money in this current season is different than when, I was just so quickly on the rise. And then I was like, whoa, okay. And then I was like, okay, like how do we want to do this? What would you want this business to look like 5 years from now, whatever it is, right? So I think that I agree with you. And that's the thing is like, I really did not let the linear world or even what was normal on the internet, I just never thought about it. Like, I didn't think that it had to go slow. I didn't listen to the entrepreneurs who are all like the first 10K is the hardest. Oh my God, you got to do a webinar. You got to prime the audience for 3 months before you sell it. Like, I just literally didn't listen to it. Didn't even cross my mind to listen or not listen. I was just like, why would I do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was
It's
like,
like
that sounds
so empowering.
awful. I'm not cold DMing anyone. I'm not doing a webinar. I'm not like, I just really had a strong instinct. And I do have a lot of sales and marketing experience, but I was like, it's my business. It's going to be based off what feels good to me. And I don't need to do things I don't want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And that empowered piece, I think, is so um what stands out to me the most of like, okay, I'm somewhere that I don't want to be. And regardless of how I got here or what the world is telling me, like, well, how am I empowered in this moment with my own energy, with the resources, endless resources that are available to me, just energetically? Like, how am I empowered to change my life right now and not just accept what is? I think that so much of the world just accepts their circumstances and um, complains about it, and that then is reinforcing that acceptance of those circumstances, and they're just staying stuck in this cycle. And so really breaking that for yourself and taking the reins and taking the keys, I want to say, and like unlocking the doors that you want to unlock is so important, whether that's you're healing spiritually, whether you're healing emotionally, healing financially. It's that being empowered to change your life or to heal what is not serving you, and like not accepting the things that don't serve you. So I'm curious to you said something about working with the quantum field, and I'm curious, in the work that you do, what that looks like or what that's looked like for you.
Yeah. So I think that I'm just a very energetic person. So I always feel everything is a frequency. And like, I'm sure you guys are, and obviously your audience too. And so we know, right? Like we've been shown through science, if you need that, right? That everything is energy. We know that everything already exists. Everything is there because it exists on the planet, right? And if it doesn't exist on the planet, we've seen people create things that didn't exist before. Like the world is just infinite, right? And so I'm like, our little spinning rock is not the like end all be all of like creation, even though the earth is really powerful. There's obviously like something larger at play. And I feel like through having such an intense psychic awakening, like once you hear voices, you're like, okay, like I think I can believe in something that I can't see, right? You're having dreams of white, like it hit me so hard. Like obviously that's not everybody's experience. And you think you want it, like trust me, it was like very intense. Like sometimes it's nice to just be like, a little more sustainable, learning how to tune in.
Totally. I can't even imagine that experience. Like you were really thrown off the deep end into that spiritual awakening, which is
Yeah. And it's like,
crazy.
why?
I'm so curious. We didn't look up your chart beforehand because we were having such technical, just craziness. But what is your design? Or do you know like
Yeah.
your type and your authority and anything else?
I'm a 3-5 generator.
Okay.
That doesn't have all the deep stuff, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Sacral, but I don't know all of the other, I can't remember like the gates and the channels and like the deeper things, but it's always in the charts.
It's always
Absolutely.
in the chart.
As
It
people
really is.
speak, we're always thinking like, oh, I wonder if she has this, because there's so many layers, like, and layers of intuition and different types of intuition and layers of, being influential or unexpected. Like, I feel like I can picture all of those things in your chart. So I'd be curious to see it someday. But
Oh my
I
God, I
think
would love to know. I'm so curious too.
and I always say that Louise Hay, when she talks about the vortex and being in this like joy frequency, all of that, I always think that this is the most powerful medicine for generators. And I think it can help for anyone, no matter what your type is, for sure. But I always think that those energetics, it's like has generator written all over it. I mean,
Mhm.
for you, it just seems like that was such a powerful turnaround. It's really amazing. I'm curious, was there ever like, I love that you said that you just didn't pay attention to outer authorities and you really sort of just trusted what you wanted to create and took that empowerment back. But I'm curious, were there any deconstructions of like limiting beliefs inside of you that you had to do in that time? Or was it sort of like seeing that big financial outcome with you? We talked about that opportunity with your friend and it just realizing all at once that like money doesn't have to be hard, that it can be so abundant. Was it that moment that helped you quantum leap, or did you do a lot of work to like let go of any limiting beliefs or things like that?
It's so funny because I always teach, I'm like, guys, if you want to hunt for limiting beliefs, you will be hunting for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
Like,
true.
wouldn't they say that we have
Yes.
about, don't they say that we think the same like 13,000 thoughts every day? Like, it's something wild like that. And I'm like, I just don't play that game. And I'm like, the
Right.
more you expand your frequency and just let go of what doesn't serve you, your brain just starts working more in your favor. And
Right.
also at every level, you're going to have some level of fear, but it's like, how much airtime do you want to give it? And so for me, I feel like and I'm not saying again that I haven't had moments, but I feel like I understood the entrepreneurial spirit very early. I'm like,
Mm,
entrepreneurs take risks for a living. We are paid to live in the unknown. If
right.
you don't like that, don't be an entrepreneur. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like it's literally
totally.
like that. So I understood. And also, once you've been to the floor the way that I was in every single
Mhm.
area, it's like we can only go up.
Yeah.
Right. And you can see that that's really a gift. Like, even though it was probably really difficult, you can see that it sort of was the perfect jumping off point for you. So I think that's really interesting and something to keep in mind when we are going through challenges. Like, I never know how this is actually up leveling me, but I have to trust that it always is an up level. So let me just move through it and have that faith. And, we always say with Shane and I, with people who want to start their own businesses, like, what's your greatest one single tip? And I'm like, kind of my greatest tip is to just fucking do it already. Like to just choose it, to just go for it. And it is mind blowing to me how many people have amazing ideas. They really feel excited. They feel like this thing is aligned for them and they just don't choose it. They just don't choose to attune to that frequency and to just like say fuck it and see how it goes. And for me, I think that was the biggest thing that we did right with our business. In my life in other ways, I think I have struggled just choosing something and just going for it. But with DayLuna specifically, it was just like some spirit inside was like, fuck it, let's fucking go. And it just worked, choosing that thing, and get those limiting beliefs do come up along the way, but you're not subscribing to them and living within them, because you've sort of just like chose this higher frequency that you're moving towards, put all of your faith and trust and connection into that. And I feel like that's been something that's been really helpful for me.
I totally agree. And I think the energy that I also like helps me remember is like, it's the matrix. It's that kind of like dark energy that wants you spinning out, confused,
Mm.
questioning yourself, not going for what you want because you're moving outside of the system. Like you were told the dream should be get a job, buy a house, pay the bank for the next 30 years and be happy and rely on our government system and rely on our healthcare and always never really have enough money. You never have fuck you money. You know what I mean? You just got enough money to like keep going, but you always need us. And we
Mm-hmm.
can always control you a little bit, right? So I feel like I'm awake to that. And I feel like that's one of the biggest like frequencies that comes through me. And so it's like, if you know that, like, how could you keep saying yes? How could you keep saying yes to being controlled for the rest of your life? We also have very deep programming around failure, right? So school teaches us that there's one right way and you got to follow the steps. And if you do what we say, you get an A, right? And then if you get enough A's, you get to go to this school. And then if you do well at this school, then you get to have this job, right? You know what I mean? There's always like you need to do this to have this, and we'll like let you know if you're doing it right. But that's again playing in the paradigm that they want you to play in. And for some people, right, they experience a lot of success in that. I'm not like poo-pooing it, but I'm saying most people who listen to shows like this, who are interested in this type of conversation, are here for something else, or they're here to create differently within that paradigm, right? And so because we're taught, you literally get a grade, A through F. We're going to let you know how good you are. But as we know, some of the most brilliant humans on the planet were horrible in school, or they were called, we have ADHD. What, you mean you're bored? You know what I mean? Like you somehow don't when you love what you're doing. But if
Yeah.
you're bored and you can't hide it, here's your label and here's your medication to calm down. Like I just can't, And so we're taught that that's the way that it is. So you succeed or you fail, you win or you lose. Like, but it's actually not like that. And if you look at all just wildly successful humans in the world, it's like, well, how like Michael Jordan has this quote where it's like, I won so much because I lost so much, right? And he has like how many times he had the opportunity for like the winning shot of the game and he lost or he missed or whatever, all the things, right? And it's like people who win and who are perceived to win frequently, like they don't play from like, am I winning or losing? It's like, it's more about, I'm going to build myself to be the absolute best in the game, but not in comparison to you. It's just like, but the game's like with yourself. And then you wind up becoming the best in the game because everybody else is looking left and right, and afraid of failure and this, that, and the other. And it's like, why we need to drop the programming around failure, because getting to very high heights is like, it is an experiment. Like we hire people, like I definitely had coaches. I still do all these things because it's like, but I have this belief that I'm going to get there anyway. I'm going to get there anyway, but this is going to help speed me up. And even within the context of coaching, I know what's for me and what's not. Or sometimes I try something, I'm like, oh, it's not a vibe, but it's like shift it, rearrange it. And I think there's a lot of, but like to me, dropping that programming isn't about your limiting beliefs. It's about having the level of awareness of where it comes from. And it's like, energetic forces that are literally here to control you, control your mind, control your life, control your destiny. And so to me, that gets to be enough to go, I'm not doing this. And don't get me wrong, like I had shame. I was like, why? Like more than limiting beliefs, I feel like I just carried like energetic shame about like, think about the number of people who don't experience what I experienced, who were put on the path that I was on, like good school, good job, and just kept going and got married and bought a house and had 2 kids and like did not destroy themselves and get in crazy relationships and you burn through money through psychic addiction. Who's ever met someone who had a psychic addiction? You know what I mean? Not me, only me. But I was like, even in my downfall, I was like, but most people like had alcoholism or substance abuse or more like acceptable downfalls.
Just more common than a psychic addiction would be an alcohol addiction. But it is because they are suppressing that. I mean, a lot of what I'm hearing you say for us in human design, everything is about authenticity and everything is about not living by outer authority and instead becoming your own authority. And I love it because I feel like what you're saying is so reflective of that. It's like you really are your own authority about how you're meant to do something. So stop comparing yourself to other people. Stop allowing other people to control you or define you. Stop thinking that anyone else is smarter than you or knows better. Like you are here to navigate your path. And I really believe that when you allow yourself to do that in a unique way, things are unlocked. And if you're not doing that, you're suppressing those things. They get so contorted and twisted inside of us, and it will come out sort of in these ways that maybe are very latent, like you're not acting out, you're not showing other people, you're not making any changes, but internally that energy is so stifled. I feel like it's so sad how many people just have allowed that outer authority to suppress them, and then they end up suppressing themselves because of that.
I agree with you. And even within the context of business, I'm like, when we're getting help, it's like it should always be about how can I create something that feels even more like me? And instead, people take like that follower energy that they learn from kind of like the mainstream world and they bring it. This is how we end up with guru culture. This is how we end up with these weird cult dynamics. This is how we end up with women spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to support, quote unquote, get help, and they still don't know how to build a company. I'm like, what are you doing? Right. And it's not, I'm not even saying that the people that they're quote unquote paying are necessarily the problem, but I'm like, it's how we interact in the field, and it's like, it does not matter how much money you throw out something, whatever. If you continue to outsource your power and think that someone else is going to save you or there's one magic trick, you will always wind back up where you started, waiting with the universe, waiting for you to anchor your power because the next person will move. I've invested multiple six figures in mentorship. It's so powerful, but it's like, it never works from a place of, I have no idea. I don't know. How do you do every single little thing? I'm clueless. Like I didn't get here doing that. And people do it in mentorship. They do it with human design. People outsource. It's like, human design does not exist for you to outsource your power to it. It's about becoming more of yourself, not going, well, I'm a projector, so business is going to be hard for me. Like these things don't, like this is, if we carry that frequency, you will always be living in the energy of a problem rather than the energy of expansion. And I don't think people understand the degree to which they live and play in the frequency of the victim.
Oh my gosh. I love that you brought that up because it's something that we're so passionate about, how you can take any system and let it box you in and let it disempower you. And you can take any system and let it empower you and expand you. It's like like you said, the victim energy or like the problem energy versus this is something that's uplifting or supporting or expanding. And I can't tell you how many things I've seen, whether that's human design teachers or even the human design school that tells you like, oh, this is your design. Like this is a problem. This is you can never be with somebody with this. You have a defined mind or an undefined mind. You have to have a business partner with a defined mind. Like there's so many things that people like to try to just box you in with. And it's tricky when you're, going out to learn more about yourself and go on a spiritual journey because you will come across gurus or teachers or psychics or whoever that is helping you put languaging to the things that you're experiencing and feeling. But there's a really fine line between being empowered and being giving your control away, giving your power away to something. And you're the one who has that gauge of like, oh, this is empowering me, or actually this is now I've given my power to this thing and I'm just doing whatever it tells me to do. And I'm mindlessly back into that matrix, like you said. I think it's a continual process with all of the things that we're navigating. Like, is this empowering me? Am I noticing that I'm giving my power away here? I think that's going to happen. Like, it's a process that you have to constantly be being aware of. But I wanted to ask you, for somebody who's listening, who's like, okay, I have been so in the matrix and I am like everything that you said about A, B, C, and D, doing, the linear path and being a good girl and whatever. And now I'm here and I feel like, what the fuck? Like, everything sucks. I don't know what to do. um, People who are wanting to like make that leap or make that just shift of their consciousness or their awareness to that empowered place, are there any tips or starting places that you would recommend for those people?
Become more aware from what lens, just to make sure I understand.
Yeah, like from the lens of like what you were saying about you know, go to school, make your money, buy a house, and now you're like trapped in the system and you got A's, but like, you're trapped by it. Like, what's the first step to get to get out of the matrix, if you will, or like a
Honestly,
good place to start?
oh, sorry. So I think that like it's increasing our levels of self-awareness. I find that when we're listening to conversations like this, right, we start surrounding ourselves with people and being in spaces. This is the power, right, of mentorship and getting in the room is like, get in the room with people who've transcended the problem that you have, right?
Mm.
Stop sitting around trying to think about it and like get in the room, because I do believe in like energetic osmosis, where it's like, if you're around all of these other awake people, you're going to start the frequency difference between being in that room versus like what you then turn around and experience in your normal life. You're going to be like, things are off.
Mhm.
Right. And what you were once normalizing, which is actually suffering, and people are great at normalizing suffering and calling it life.
Mhm.
What you are normalizing, calling suffering, and then wondering why it's hard to lose weight. My skin looks dull. My hair is falling out. I'm so tired. Right. Like all of that. Why don't I have a sex drive anymore? Like all this stuff, the ways that it really shows up that like things are out of alignment or they feel hard or like all of it, you will lose tolerance for it, because the thing is, you have to stop having so much tolerance for what you're suffering through. And there's going to be areas where you are, right? But instead of creating excuses for it, it's sort of like, okay, well, what frequency would I be in if I was someone who didn't tolerate this? Like, I even believe in asking ourselves energetic questions, because I find that that opens more doors than how do I solve this problem, right? Because everything is energy first, as you guys know, right? So when we basically, like I always say, I'm like, what we experience today is a culmination of our energies and our actions from the past. So we always want to be creating present forward rather than past present. A lot of people create past present. What happened before? What happened before? What happened before? And then they wonder why today has not changed. I'm like, what's your point of creation? Your point of creation is what happened before, but you're telling me you want to experience something new. Right. So I think it's really powerful to be around people, to get in rooms where there is like a higher level of frequency conversation, so you can learn to view the world from an energetic lens. It'll change your life. Right. While you also learn about yourself. And then also it's like, okay, cool. If my point of creation is now present forward, it's like, if I'm not going to be afraid, if I'm not going to think I'm going to fail, if I'm not going to have any stories that I learned from this linear world, if it's just like an infinite, abundantly conversation between me, the divine, and where I'm going, what do I want next? You don't have to know what you want 10 years from now, but what do you want next? And you're going to feel all your weird little insecurities come up. Like, we're going to have those feelings. Like, I was scared to have a podcast. Like I had me having a podcast on a manifestation list. Whereas now it'd be like, okay, just like get the team, start the show, let's go. You know what I mean? There would be no need to have it on a list. It would just get done. Like, I have a podcast now, but there was a point where I was like, oh my God, like this is so big. Or sharing what I shared with you guys, like, oh my gosh, saying that to the world to how many thousands, hundreds of people, whatever, are going to hear this. I mean, that had me like on the floor, but I got through it by doing it. I got through it by being around people where I did hear their stories of addiction and chaos and whatever it was. Most people have a hero. We love the hero's journey. How much money does Hollywood make creating hero's journeys? So guess what? Like, you have your own. It just might look different than mine, you know? So it's like, we're always going to be in a certain way. It's like, you know, I'm saying the better it gets, the better it gets. Wealth definitely has a building energy, but there is this continuous energy of almost like transmuting quote unquote shit into gold. But I don't mean that you want to hit the floor to rise, because then you never get anywhere. If we do that over and over, a lot of people have a relationship to creation that looks like that, fall to get up, and we need to learn how to build, right? But I'm saying that even in learning how to build, there's these elements of like, okay, I love this, but like, oh, this is sticky. Okay, so what frequency would I be in? How would I be thinking? How would I be moving? How would I be being if this was easy? And it's like, you ask yourself these energetic questions, and then all of a sudden, like something, and you let it go. Don't look for the answer with your mind. And then you like see something on the internet, or this idea drops in, or like whatever it is. You know what I mean? So it's like, we're taught to process everything through the mind, but when you process energetically, you move a lot faster, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And I just love everything that you're sharing, because I think it's so needed and helpful and empowering, like I've said. It feels just so expansive, right? Like, you don't need to go on this long journey for years and years and play the game of the limiting beliefs, like you said. Like, so many of the key little phrases that you said, I'm like, yes, that's exactly it. And it's interesting, you know, in my life, there's been these like key moments that have helped me realize, like, oh, wait, this is a game, or like, this is total perspective shift, like you watching the matrix change, right? And being like, wait, that's an agent, right? There's definitely been moments where, and one of them, and I think a lot of people can resonate, is anytime that you travel, right? You like get into a different space, into a different frequency, and all of a sudden you're like, I could live here. I could see life like this. I could, you know, forget buying everything on Amazon and instead like walk to the market every day. Like, you get a whole different perspective shift just by, you bought a plane ticket and now you're in a different place around different people. Like you said, you get in the room, and things shift. I've also noticed that when I'm around people who are, you know, expanders for me, let's say they're really wealthy and they have multiple homes and, you know, whatever, and they're just enjoying their meal and I'm having a meal with them, I felt my perspective shift of like, this is normal. It's totally normal. And feeling that expansiveness, and then seeing it in my life, like, oh, I bought a house, that was super normal. I did this, it was super normal. And because I'm around people where that is super normal, right? So I definitely, there's been moments in my life, and I would say that the last one that really comes to mind is when I was working, I like had worked my way up corporate, you know, career, and I was the director of operations of all of these companies, and I was kicking ass and doing all the things. And I was in this room with these literally like some billionaires, some millionaires, and they're all these mega CEOs. And they were chatting about this project that they all want to work on together. And they were literally asking me what I thought. Like, what do you think we should do? What are your ideas here? And I was just sitting there like, you guys are, none of you guys know what you're doing more than I do. Like, none of you are more qualified more than me to come up with this solution or this program or whatever. And it was just this huge light bulb moment of like, I don't have to grow to a certain point to be powerful. I don't have to achieve a certain amount of things to be like, have valuable input or ideas or creations. And once that happened, it was like, okay, like, what room do I want to be in? Because it wasn't that room with them, wasn't those, you know, opportunities, but it was just like like, oh, I don't need you. Like, I'm on your same level, and let me just operate from that place. So anyways, I think that it's so helpful, the things that you've said about like, get in the room, surround yourself with that frequency, and letting that, asking those energetic questions versus those mental questions is so, so, so helpful. So I'm just excited. I'm curious how you are enjoying right now working with people, and like what is the thing right now that you're just so lit up and passionate about sharing with people or helping people with?
Yeah. So obviously, like money and business are my things, but I feel like we're in an era. I don't know what you see on the internet from your perspective, but I'll say, I started my business at the very end of 2019, like the very, very end, which was a really interesting era because we had COVID, right? And so,
Mhm.
a lot of people I think were waking up for the first time that, like, oh, maybe the government's not going to save you. Oh, sometimes they even lie to you. Oh, wow. You know what I mean? Like it was a very we had Black Lives Matter. We had a lot going on, right? And I think that was one of the first times in our generation that we were wildly woken up to enter to like the level of like hold, right? That certain energetic surrounds like government systems and just the way things are. Like, I don't think our generation had been so awake to it. Even definitely not our parents. Our parents are the type of people who believe mainstream media. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
like, literally. And they're like, whatever the doctor says. It was like, I think that we start to wake up and I was like, oh, this is so cool because people are realizing, like, wow, like I need to get in the driver's seat of my life. So, even though I was tired during that time, just energetically for obvious reasons, I was so like, oh my guys, this is amazing. Like, let's go. And now I feel like we're in an era, like, obviously more of that is happening, but now we're not like surprised by it. Right. And I don't even mean like, what's your political beliefs? Are you on the left? Are you on the right? I'm not talking about that. I'm literally just talking about the energy of all of it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And just the way that it like hooks in and the control. I'm talking about the energy of control, regardless of belief system.
Yeah.
And I feel like now what I see happening, at least in like my corner of the internet, is like people are they're playing this game where it's like, oh my God, so and so's made $1 million doing this one thing, this one way. Like they have all the answers, right? And then they're like going in that direction and like totally just, I mean, I've had people come to me. I'm like, what happened? You were having 40K months. Now you're having $3,000. Like what happened? You can't get here without like you outsourced somewhere. And it's like, oh, I hired this person and they literally just like blindly adopt someone else's business model, blindly adopt someone's way of doing content because it works for them, all of these different things. And it's like I'm seeing a lot of almost like it's just like it's like a lot, I call it like copycatting, right? And it's like dipping into this, like, but not from a malicious place, but it's almost like this energy of the follower instead of being the energy of the leader. And it's like, the more this industry evolves, the faster there's people having $1 million months now, $2 million months, $4 million months, all these things. And it's all powerful no matter where you are financially. But I see people get like lost in the sauce. And it's almost like they don't realize the degree to which like money is controlling them in a way that it's actually blocking their ability to make more money because they're getting lost in I call it lost in other people's realities. Right.
Mm.
So the way that other people do what they do. And so like, I'm always going to teach what I do, what I've done, what I've seen work. But my goal as a business mentor is always like, okay, I want to teach you to increase your business intelligence, not to do things exactly how I do, but for you to ever make millions of dollars. Like you've also got to have the brain of someone who knows. It's not because you copied so-and-so's fucking messaging framework or whatever. It's like you've got to have the brain of someone who knows how to evolve a company like that, who then borrows bits and pieces from other people's like, oh, that's smart. That makes sense for my company. That's smart. That makes sense for my company, right? That's creation. That's how you step into a really big company. And because people are sold like, this is the secret, right? This is the one thing. This is the way. Sometimes I'm like, guys, don't, like, you want to be a leader, stop believing marketing so heavily. Of course they're marketing that way. Of course they are, right? Because it works, but that doesn't mean you need to believe all of it, right? I'm like, go. And so I've seen people go down that path and like destroy already successful companies, right?
Yeah,
And it's
it's so
like,
interesting.
it's so crazy. There's so much of it. It's unbelievable. And I'm not saying that like, oh, I'm your perfect answer, blah, blah, blah. Right. But what I'm saying is like my belief around business is like, I'm also not going to not teach you how to do things. Like we need to learn to do tangible things. And the way we do them grows at different levels. I'm always honest about what I've seen work, not work, what I would advise, not advise. But I'm like, you can't put on the business model of an 8-figure entrepreneur. When you are at 6 figures, you will tank your income. She can be on the internet all day long selling $33 offers because she's selling 300 of them in 3 days, converting all these people on the back end, running ads, doing this, doing that. If you do the same thing, you will make no money, right? Like people don't think through like these types of things. And this is where I feel like I've seen things go strategically that I think is really interesting. And then energetically, I know I was talking to you too about this previously because you're coming onto my show. It's like, I really feel like we are being called to, it's like a new point of evolution. Like there was the energy of like 2020, and I feel like that was a very powerful awakening. And I feel like we're in another one, but it's faster. I feel like there's more, instead of it just being like these singular topics on the table, it's like everything is on the table, right? Like before it was like, it was COVID, it was Black Lives Matter. It was like very like specific issues. And now it's like, we see whatever's happening with the celebrity culture. We see politics. We see what's happening in the US. We see what's happening in Ukraine. We see Israel and Gaza. We are Israel and Palestine. We see like, you know what I mean? It's like so many places, and like, it's very different. I feel like it's a more, I don't know, it feels like a broader like shakeup. And I always see these times. And so there's people who cave to fear and like the economy, what is Donald Trump going to do to the country? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, we don't know. But regardless, there are always people who see opportunity in times of chaos, in times of uncertainty, and they create something extraordinary. And like we have the opportunity to do that, but you can't be subscribed to guru culture. And when I say chasing money, like I'm a money coach. I love money, want to make lots of money, but you can't make it by thinking that like you can just borrow exactly what somebody else did and like put it on your body. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like, it's a very weird energy. I'm like, you need to learn how to be like, I call it increase your business intelligence. Learn how to, like that's really what it is. There's no billionaires, multimillionaires where they're like, oh, I just only did exclusively what they told me to do, and here I am.
Yeah. I mean, I would say definitely from a human design perspective, it would be like increasing your awareness of your authenticity, like truly who you are without the comparison of, what worked for someone else or who someone else is or why this isn't working for you, but it worked for them. Like when you really know who you are and how to trust yourself and what your gifts are, what your purpose is, like the languaging with human design is so liberating because it puts language to things that you've always felt. And so like when you have that stability within yourself, that safety within yourself, then jumping off the cliff is less scary. Then all of the things that are crumbling around us and are going to keep crumbling even more as we go into this new paradigm, it's less scary because you have this sense of safety within yourself of knowing who the fuck you are. And you can't get rocked from that because you're not trying to make decisions like, this person or that person. You're really just trying to make decisions as you yourself, Shayna or whoever, right? So that releasing that comparison and judgment piece is we compare ourselves and we judge ourselves so much that it's crazy. We don't even know we're doing it because it doesn't have the face of like, oh, she's prettier than me, right? It's like what we think normally of like judgment or comparison. It's like in the ways where we think, oh, that worked for that person. Let me try it. They're really successful. Let me do that. And then I'm going to be successful. And that's where we're then trying to put their clothes on our body, right? So we would say like really get down to the core of like who you are, like seeing who you are, and then asking those energetic questions. I love that phrasing that you said, of like how you want to move forward next. And I love like, oh, this makes sense. And this feels right. This I want to add in. We would say use your authority with all the little things that you want to add in, because if you're adding it in because it makes sense in your mind, but your authority is just like, blah about it, it's never going to work. It's going to be something that's distracting you from your path that you're now feeding energy or money or resources into, and it's not working for you because it's not actually aligned. So yeah, there's a lot of different things there, but with us and with human design, like this new paradigm, things are going to be falling away, and you can get swept up in the fear, and then your mind can take over and really want to, geez, I'm on my phone and it just, there we go. Somebody FaceTimed me. These are my technical difficulties today. But your mind can want to take over and then do all of the things that make sense. And then you find yourself in some structure that you've created that's now crumbling too, along with everything else. And so the most important thing that we can do as we move forward, while things are crumbling, things are also rising. And how do you want to contribute to the things that are rising? That has to come from a place of authenticity, self-trust, and really awareness of like what is right for you and what is not, because that's what's going to be true. A good example of this, and I talked about this I think maybe once before, but is what you were saying, like with COVID and how that was so polarizing, and it really shook people up and awoken them, well, open their eyes, that's the word I'm looking for. And with vaccines, and that was so polarizing, and I saw so many spiritual teachers and gurus and whatever, like, don't get the vaccine, it's so toxic, or get it because otherwise you're a menace to society, or like whatever. There's so much. Yeah, there's so much outside of you, but like when you really zoom out and you're like, okay, everything is energy. If my authority, I would say with human design, is saying that this is right for me, then energetically it is right for you. And if it's saying that this is wrong for me and bad, then energetically it's wrong for you and bad. And so for you to say this is right for me, so it has to be right for you, then you're trying to be an authority over someone else. You're going to end up in a place that's crumbling as well. If you're like, okay, trust yourself, like whatever's right for you, it is literally the energetics. It's energy. The vaccine's fucking energy. So trying to claim that you know something more, you can apply this, analogy to anything in life, where it's like, okay, energetically, is this right for me or not? Is this resonant or not? And then let go of the comparison, the judgment, all of the mental bullshit that we put on top of it, the fear, where we're trying to then control other people or follow some other authority that feels really passionate and stepping out. It's always going to come back to that. So as we get more and more information, as the world gets more and more collectively intense with the things that are shifting and changing, we become really used to it, and it just keeps going, keeps going. It's always going to be coming back to, is this right for me or not? And we would say using your authority to really decipher what that is.
And it's also interesting because sometimes people pendulum swing and then they go blind. So then it's like, I don't need anybody else. I don't need to know. I've seen this too. I don't need to know anything. I'm like, oh, and nothing's working and you have no idea why, because you're just following your intuition. Like I tell energetic women in business, I'm like, you cannot scale a 7-figure, multiple 7 company exclusively following your intuition. Like we need, like, you will go towards strategies that work for you, et cetera. But I'm like, you need to learn about business. Like, this isn't something you just like meditate on and the whole thing falls out of the sky. You know what?
That's interesting, because like the theme of being an individual, unique in yourself, and how do I be that while being part of a community, being a part of the collective, connecting with other people, right? Like it has to have the other side.
Exactly.
But then being able to observe other people and learn from them, learn from their wisdom and insight and how they're here to be thought leaders and all the things, but then being able to come back home to yourself to say, okay, what does my intuition feel about that for me in this moment? Like that's exactly, and that is the new paradigm. Like literally the sentence that people mostly say is like how to be an individual while operating in a community. And like that's exactly what you just said. Like you can't just be, I'm just going to use my intuition and blind out my community or blind out the rest of the world and not learn from all of these amazing resources around me. You have to merge the two and have that confidence of like who you are within that.
Yeah. And I think that's what people need to learn. And I think that's where people get lost and there's a lot of fear. like let's say something's working for someone and it's not working for them. And it's like, oh my God, something's wrong with me. I'm not getting it right. And I'm like, no, like the vibe is, okay, let's learn this thing. And then like, how do we have it work for, how do we do it your way?
Yeah.
How do we just do it your way? Like, there's nothing wrong with you for not being her. You weren't born as her. Why would it be exactly working? It doesn't even make any sense. And I also see it even more, like, because I attract very energetic, what I call energetically based humans, right? Like, we especially, because I've been in the spaces when they're overly masculine, all this stuff. I'm like, and this is like working like clockwork for other people, and I collapse. I contract, I collapse. Like, I can't like breathe. It kills my creativity. I talk to a lot of people like that, but there will be other people in that room who it's working so well for. And I'm like, you are not a 3D human. Like, you guys have to understand, you are just built differently. We are built differently. Our point of creation is not like learn from the textbook and go do the thing. If you think about it, there's a lot of people where that is their point of creation and it's not a problem. Think about a lawyer, a doctor. It's like you follow the rules, you do the thing. And honestly, the better you know all these things, the better you will perform. Like it's a different reality. And again, because remember, we're not holier than thou
Yeah.
because we play in the world of energetics, but you need to understand that you play in a different paradigm. So if I'm in a business room like that, I'm going to collapse. I'm going to hate it. Like, it won't even me being closed off. It'll just me being like energetically, like, this is not for me, but I'll just take the bits and pieces that are, but it's like, that's not an energy I should expose myself to often, right? Like, there's other ways to be inside. Like, I believe in feminine business and like, let's be strategic, but let's do it in a lean back way that's customized to you, personalized to you, whatever it is. But like, when you're energetically based the way that I am, the way that your audience is, like, we learn differently, we experience differently. So it's also like, don't compare yourself to people who quite literally just have a very different energetic way they function on the planet is different. It's not better or worse. It's literally just different. It's a little bit more by the book. These are the people who a copywriter can just write for them and it works. And if someone does that for you, my company would tank. It would be over, right? Like, my team can repurpose things I've done. We can evolve them, but just like write as me, like my voice is there's no way, because I communicate more from an energetic lens rather than a 3D one. But you see people, they're all over the internet. People literally are writing books for other people that sell out. That would never work in my company. So it's like, but that doesn't mean business is harder for us. It means that we're just going to optimize differently. But that's where you have to understand that you're different and stop trying to be something that you're not in the world of business or wherever you are, so that you can actually thrive in ways that feel really good. And I feel like that's the part that people don't understand about themselves. They're like too energetically awake to play over in a more linear, masculine, 3D world. And again, not holier than thou, just different. Our planet is 3D, but we're also surrounded by all this quantum energy. People like us create energy like first. People who function well in that world are like, give me the facts and then I will create.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if you can understand this, like, things change.
Yeah, it's so true. I feel like we've come across that a lot throughout the years of like hiring a PR company that was just so 3D, or hiring social media people to be writing copy for us. And it was just like, no, 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 no. Like, everything, as much as they tried, as much as we gave them critiques or, different pieces of insight, like, it just never aligned. And it was sort of a freeing moment to realize that we are sort of just like these new paradigm, like 5D, however you want to say it, energetic beings. And we have to just let ourselves shine like that. And the traditional, things that other people may be doing that may work for them, but it doesn't work for us. And it's really freeing to be able to give yourself that permission. But also, I love, so much of what we talked about in this conversation is about finding mentorship that is on that same level as you, and that they've solved the problems that you're wanting to solve, but in that realm. And I think that that's a really beautiful thing to focus on, and definitely something that we want to focus on next.
They're going to understand who you are and the way that you operate.
Right.
Like, so many people come to me and they're like, oh, you get it. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm like you, and I'm like, you're spending all this money trying to get people to get you. Like, stop with the pick me energy. Those people just aren't for you, but there's nothing wrong with them and there's nothing wrong with you.
Yes, I
Yeah.
love it so much. So I'm curious to ask you, as we're kind of like closing out our conversation here, you mentioned, not everyone is sort of like meant to be this entrepreneurial spirit. It's just not a fit for everyone. But I'm curious, for the people who do feel like that's their soul's calling, they do feel like they want to take that empowerment and use the opportunities of the changing and the shifts happening in the world to create something that's really going to be of service. Like all of those people listening that feel that call, I'm curious what is on your heart that you would want to tell those people, in these times where things are shifting, there's so, like you said, I do feel like the world is speeding up. And also there's so much like the problems are multiplied, or the information is multiplied and entangled, sped up, multiplied, entangled. Like it is a multifaceted and wild times that we live in. What is your advice for people who have this entrepreneurial spiritual spirit to navigate these times?
It's an opportunity, guys. It's the same thing. It's like when everybody's selling out of the stock market, you buy. When they go left, you right. Go right. The more chaotic it gets, the more people need help.
Yeah.
Right. So like, don't fall down with the masses, like be the leader. Like, this is what I really mean. This follower versus leader energy. It sounds a little divisive, but like, I'm serious.
Yeah.
Right. So people who are able to lead and are able to see beyond what most people can see, it's because you're not being responsive to the chaos and the drama. You're seeing what's the opportunity. You're reading the room. You're reading the energy. You're reading where most people are going. And you're like, well, what would actually make sense? Like, how many stories are there of successful entrepreneurs where they just actually saw the problem with how most people were moving and did something differently? Or even the products that we have in our lives, the technology evolutions. They're like, why does everybody need to do it this way? It's just so slow. Like, let's just create this, right? So it's understanding that every time we go through, I mean, this is just sort of the era that we live in. But first of all, you were incarnated at this time for a reason. So let's stop being like, woe is me. It's like you were literally here for a reason. And if you have that feeling, you have something to contribute, and like, don't overcomplicate it. Like, let's start contributing it and get on the internet and speak your truth and like choose a few, like have a voice, take up space
Yes.
and have a voice.
Mm.
Stop trying to figure out what hook is going to make you go viral. Like, talk about wasting your time and literally just have something to say, which is going to build your business a lot faster. Right. And it's like, and know that it's perfect. There's always people behind you. There's always people ahead of you. There's always people behind you. We're always going to be, it's almost like no matter how successful you become, we're always in the middle somewhere. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And being okay with that. And it's like, you're here for people who haven't figured out things that you think are so obvious. Like, so much of what you will monetize and be really successful with is stuff that's actually easy for you. How crazy is that? Right. But that's actually what makes sense. You're so embodied in that. Of course, that's what you're here for. And then also know that it's going to evolve as you grow. It's going to change as you go. Everybody's businesses are not static. I feel like people really need to learn this lesson. Business is not static. There's no one end destination. There's no one point where everything is perfect and nothing has to change. We're always, businesses are living, breathing entities. Like, they're their own energy. Right. And we just want to be like tuned into like what feels really good for the company, what feels really good for me, what feels where it's good, what makes me feel like my business is supporting me instead of me working around the clock for the business. You know what I mean? And it's like, just go and take up space and don't get sucked into like noise and chaos. And it doesn't mean that like you don't care. It's just like this level of like energetic detachment that is quite honestly healthy. Unless, you're here to be an activist or, right, like that's a very different type of energy. You are on the ground, here to be an activist. You are literally supposed to be in politics. Like, again, different energies. But for where you're, so I'm not saying like everybody should start moving like this, but I'm answering the question for the people who are meant to be what I call essentially like a lighthouse, but not necessarily in the realm of activism or in the realm of politics or in the realm of medicine, even potentially, although there's lots of people in our field who are like in their version of medicine, right? But it's like, what it's about is like, there's this unique way that you do what you do. And this is such a powerful way to shine at this current point in time. It's not just that you're in human design. It's not just that I'm a business coach and money coach. It's not just that like you're a health coach. There's this unique way that you do what you do that literally cannot be replicated, duplicated. And so much of what makes us stand out and quickly in business is having the ability to know that, to claim that, to market it, right? I'm helping clients with this all the time. I'm like, it's already there. You're just making it more complicated than it is, or you're not really slowing down to really feel into your process and your thought leadership / your hot take on all these commonly taught topics. You don't need to come up with something that no one's ever heard before, right? The magic is that how it alchemizes like through you. So that's what we really want to tap into.
I love it. There's so much amazing insight in what you just shared. And I think that having that be, for all of us that are like visionaries, like
You're all visionaries.
lean
Yeah.
into your vision, like be adaptable and just like believe in yourself and allow yourself to use this opportunity. And I do believe that like things do feel overwhelming for a lot of people, but I feel like that's just one shift away from seeing all of the opportunity. Like everything is crumbling. Great. Look how much opportunity there is to build things that are new. And every single day our technologies are advancing. Every single day we have so many new opportunities with AI. It's just like, are you excited to utilize those opportunities in a way that's going to support what you see is needed for the future? Like it's really so grounding and simple if we can take that in and keep that in our hearts.
There are so many ways where everyone's like, AI is going to ruin your life. I'm like, let's focus on the ways that it can optimize and speed up your company.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like every single development you get to use to speed up too.
Right.
Right. So it's not like people just want to sometimes like blanket block things. And like,
Yeah.
I'm totally on board with the fact that like, let's let the actors and actors, let's have humans on the screen. Like, you know what I mean? But I'm not in Hollywood. I don't, I can't like own that conversation, but I'm like, yeah, there's ways to leverage it in your company to just collapse time. Like, why are we making things take so long?
Yeah.
That don't need to. Like the world is speeding up. That means we get to speed up too, which is very cool. And sometimes you need to just like not follow quite so many news outlets and constant media updates. And you don't need to be asleep, but it's like maybe you're tuned into a few independent journalists who you love and like, you know what I mean? Whatever it is, you look when you want to look, but like you can't be hooked in 24/7. Like you won't be able to be productive and you won't be able to hear yourself. You'll always be like reacting to something.
Yeah. So true.
I just love you. I'm so grateful that you came on with us today because there's just so many little things that you've said. I feel like I can see people listening like, that's exactly what I needed to hear. Just little sound clips. So you just are amazing. I'm really grateful. Where can people find you? How can they work with you? Where do they go from here?
Yes. So I have a show. It's called Queen Flow, the podcast. I'm obsessed with it. I talk about business, money, energetic strategy, all the different things all the time. My website, or you can find me on Instagram, jocelyn.kelly.reid. My website's jocelynkellyreid.com. And I would say that one of the favorite places that I have so many programs and offerings, but I have a membership called the Secret Money membership, which is $55 a month. It's like a very easy access point, and you receive like all of my like mini programs, master classes, and I have this area of our Telegram chat where I'm just like continuously riffing in on topics like this, what I'm seeing in the business world. Sometimes it's strategic with money, sometimes it's energetic, sometimes it's my read just on frequencies, what I'm doing in my business, what I'm seeing. And so it's kind of like you have me in your pocket all the time. And we have hot seat coaching calls and all these different things. So I feel like that's a very accessible place in my world that my clients are really loving as well.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. It's so exciting. I'm like, just buzzing with all of the different, I feel expanded. That's the word. I feel expanded by your energy and breaking out of the matrix feels so fun. So thank you so much. I'm going to be checking out all of your offerings too, just because you just feel so good. So yeah, thanks for being with us today.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. This was such an incredible conversation. It's just I love it when this happens.
Same. Such a pleasure to be in the flow together, riding the same frequency waves, and our Wi-Fi just had to like catch up to our brains. Wow, we are leaving that conversation feeling so inspired about expanding. And I think that in general, things have felt really, like we were saying, things have felt like they've been speeding up. Things feel like the problems in the world have been sort of multiplying and intertwining to where they feel really complex. Like there's no doubt that the old paradigm crumbling is a lot to handle, but it's also really exciting to hold that hope that we are here in this time to use this opportunity to create something new. And all of us here that are visionaries, it's so important to believe in our vision, to believe in our mission, and to really allow ourselves to be adaptable in this time. So, we're feeling really inspired. We're so excited to be connected to Jocelyn now. We love her wisdom. She's just so amazing to talk to. We feel so connected to her. So, thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, you know where you can connect with us on our Instagram at DayLuna. You can go to our website, daylunalife.com. That's where you can find all of our different offerings, including where you can purchase our book, Your Human Design, and where you can join our membership, Your Human Design Besties, where we get to connect, find our human design besties, work with the human design transits, and deepen our human design knowledge each month. So, thank you so much for being here. We're excited to hear how this conversation has landed with you. And we hope you have a beautiful, inspiring, and expansive rest of your day.
Thank you for tuning in with us today. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe to follow along and learn more about human design.